I am in Washington, D.C. Buck is in Miami. We are joined now in studio by a guy that knows a little bit about battlegrounds and how tough it is to win in a battleground, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He's going to be with us next segment. But I wanted you to be able to hear this because a lot of stories coming out, Senator, about what's going on with the COVID situation. And a lot of the things that you and I and Buck said for a long time turning out to be even more true now that you got the gain of function, the fact that our taxpayer dollars helped to fund it, everything else. But I wanted to play this cut for you, Buck. I don't know if you've heard this either. This was Biden, I believe, earlier today, talking about how he was vice president during COVID and Barack Obama sent him to Detroit to try to help. Listen to this cut.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to.
Senator Johnson, I'll get your read, and then I want to get Buck's read on this. For him to be saying he was vice president during COVID and got sent to Detroit to help solve it, you've known, I imagine, Joe Biden for some time. What's going on here? Is this dementia? Like, how do you even have that said?
It's delusional. I mean, what else is it?
I don't even understand what he was trying to say.
He's just completely making it up. No, that is, I mean, so much about Joe Biden is troubling. I've said he was unfit for office, obviously, before the 2020 election because of our investigation of Hunter Biden. But every day that goes by becomes more obvious that he is suffering mentally significantly, which is, again, why last summer when I was on your show, I made the statement, I have a real hard time believing that he's going to be their nominee. I know it's difficult for them, and I know you guys are somewhat split on that, probably got some bets out, but I just have a hard time thinking he's actually be the nominee.
Buck, that feels like dementia to me because there's no way he could possibly think that he was vice president that he got sent to Detroit so I don't even know what he's trying to say there.
He's having a Biden moment. He's had plenty of them. Senator Johnson, I'm surprised you're still thinking they got some other plan B in the background. You might be buying me some beer and brats, sir, when we go up to Wisconsin, because I'm telling you, if they had a plan B, they would have exercised it already. They recognize Biden is very weak, but everyone recognizes, I think, that he's weak on these issues, and it just always gets covered as he misspoke, he's tired, he's doing a lot, all of this stuff. So I don't think that it really, hits home. And Senator, I'm wondering what you think about this. If Biden just shows up at this June debate in a month and is vaguely coherent and does not collapse on stage, they're going to say it's a victory.
Oh, absolutely, like the State of the Union. But I love Trump saying they need to give him a drug test.
Yeah, we've been saying that on this show. I mean, it's one thing to be wrong on a policy. Buck, I mean, to say that he was vice president during COVID and got sent to Detroit to try to solve it by President Obama, I can't to clean that up for their team. And by the way, to be fair, that was this weekend. I thought it was today. That was this weekend. I don't even know what he could be attempting to say. Is he talking about H1N1? I mean, I don't even know what his mind is trying to say there.
That would be the only out because they did have H1N1 and they mishandled that one as well.
Yeah.
Fear-mongered, the same thing they're trying to do now with Disease X. But no, it's just delusional. And we know he is diminished mentally, no doubt about it.
Senator Johnson, I was going to say, when we come back, we want to dive into Wisconsin because the battleground state, absolutely essential. The terrain there as well as anyone. So, Clay, let's dive into that.
Yeah, we need to figure out what has to happen to not only win the Senate race, but more importantly, in terms of the national picture, it's looking like whatever happens in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Biden's going to have to sweep all three based on the most recent polling. Can he do it? What needs to happen to stop that from happening?
The senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, with us now to talk about that and more. Senator, thanks for staying with us through the break. Appreciate you. Let's actually start, if I can, with this. The White House is pressing Senate Democrats to support border security bill. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, hold on. This is news from today, from now? I thought this went away a few weeks ago. Why is Biden trying to beat this drum once again on the border when we know his border is a disaster?
Well, that's why. Because the border is a disaster. And, unfortunately, McConnell, in negotiating that awful, awful bill, did give Democrats a fair amount of cover, and they're using it. So I personally think it's a strategic error on their part, because if they do bring the bill back up for the Senate, we're going to have a lot more time this time around to just describe exactly how awful that bill was, particularly using Chuck Schumer's quote. When that all collapsed, he was quoted in Politico saying, "We were playing chess, they were playing checkers, and we got a Ukraine bill." Then he went on to say, and we're in a lot better shape on the border than we were 3 months ago. So first of all, if you're actually negotiating in good shape, would you rub your negotiating partner's nose in the fact that they failed? And secondly, if you really want to secure the border, suppose you're doing this bill to do so, you don't get the bill, and now you're claiming you're better off on the border. It just proves all Schumer, all the Democrats were looking for was political cover. Unfortunately, McConnell gave them some, but the American people realize this is a disaster. Hopefully they realize that Biden has all the authority he needs to secure the border. Republicans have been happy to strengthen that authority. What we were looking for in the Republican conference, and this was the breach of McConnell's leadership, is all we were looking for was an enforcement mechanism to force Biden to use the authority he had. Again, we just strengthen it, but we weren't looking for an immigration bill. We certainly looking to codify, 4,000 or 5,000 people a day and weaken a presidential authority. That's the one part that is not talked about enough. That 4,000 discretionary threshold, 4,000 migrants a day, the president had discretion. It implies the president didn't have the authority. So you're basically codifying the fact that, well, Congress didn't think he had that authority, and then even worse, they take that discretion away after 3 years. So you would have dramatically weakened a president who wanted to secure the border, his authority to do so.
Wisconsin, and we've got Senator Ron Johnson with us here in the D.C. studio for Clay and Buck. Wisconsin better than anybody. You've won a lot of tough races. We're going to be up for the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. We'll talk a little bit more about that here with you in a moment. What are you seeing on the ground? Big Senate race, obviously the presidential race. Trump won Wisconsin by a fingernail in 2016. He lost Wisconsin by a fingernail in 2020. What makes the difference to you to putting Wisconsin into the Republican camp? Because if that happens, Trump's going to be the president in 2024. You're going to be in the majority in the Senate. What needs to happen? What are you telling the team? What are you seeing?
Well, what I'm seeing is the Democrats know that it's going to be a tough race for them, which is why Biden and Harris have been in the state a lot, primarily talking about abortion. So they are desperate to turn the election in Wisconsin all about the abortion issue, which they've done very effectively. I think it's probably cost us the governor's race in 2022, cost us the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They were very effective at scaring Wisconsinites that the Republicans are going to take away their abortion rights. And what is amazing to me is the cover the mainstream media gives them. They refuse to report on the fact that it is Democrats that have the extreme position on abortion.
You're
abortion
right.
Up to the moment of birth, whereas Republicans, the Assembly passed a bill that would have sent it to the voters, a referendum, on protecting life after 14 weeks, which is where most of the American public truly is. I mean, most Americans do want a woman to be able to make that decision up to a point, and the point is generally about 14 weeks. About 90% of abortions occur before that. So, the press always reports that Republicans want to ban abortion. Now, listen, there's part of our party that wants to absolutely ban. I think most of us, would like to not ever see abortions, but that's not the reality situation. So, in supporting like a 20-week or 15-week or 14 or 6-week, I mean, you're conceding the fact that up to some point, that's going to be a woman deciding that, make that decision. But at some point, society has a responsibility to protect life. And so, from my standpoint, it's not about banning abortion. It's about protecting life after a certain point. And that's not the way the media reports, though. It's Republicans want to ban abortion, and they are completely signed on the fact that Democrats would allow infanticide, which is basically what happened. So, I mean, I point this out all the time in press conferences in Wisconsin. They will never point out, they'll never mention that when I say it's Democrats have extreme position on abortion because they want to cover for them.
Speaking to Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, and Senator, your hopefully soon-to-be colleague, Eric Hovde, has been on with us a number of times against Senator Tammy Baldwin, right? He's the one who is trying to defeat her for that seat. She has held it for a few decades now, right? I mean, she has been in politics her entire life. What is the state of the Wisconsin Democrat party machinery? I mean, how can they keep some pretty unimpressive people. I mean, you look at the senator they have on the Democrat side. Look at who's your governor right now. I assume he's a Democrat.
Evers.
Yeah.
Ichabod Crane.
How are they able to get these kinds of very unimpressive people in these positions in Wisconsin? I mean, what is it that the Democrats are doing well? I'm just wondering, what do you have to know to be able to beat this machine they have in the state of Wisconsin?
Again, they have the media in their back pocket, okay? But I remember Senator Toomey always used to describe Pennsylvania as Philadelphia and Pittsburgh with Alabama in between. And, I think a lot of states are like that. We've got our metropolitan areas that are heavily blue, and you've got, red counties, red cities throughout the state. So it's just a lot easier for Democrats to go mine votes in Madison, Milwaukee, based on a ginned-up issue like abortion. That's what they did during the Supreme Court race for sure. We've got to go into every little small town throughout Wisconsin and get every possible vote. It's a much more difficult task. So, the way I did it is I just traveled tirelessly all over the state, bus tours, that type of thing, every Lincoln Day dinner, dairy breakfast, which is something unique and wonderful about Wisconsin, these dairy breakfasts in June. You just got to work the state really hard and go everywhere. Go absolutely everywhere.
We're going to get a bunch of beers with you in Milwaukee during the course of the Republican National Convention, hopefully. How concerned are you about Democrat left-wing activists coming in? We feel like it's going to happen in Chicago, but that's a negative for them. If they could somehow disrupt the Republican National Convention and sow chaos, turn that into the story as opposed to what's actually taking place there. How concerned are you about it? How well do you think Milwaukee will be able to handle some of those protesters should they come?
Well, I'm highly concerned now that I've seen the security plan, which was developed for the DNC convention that was going to take place in the summer of 2020. So they developed this plan, based on Secret Service's criteria before the summer of 2020 riots.
Yes.
Okay, BLM, Antifa riots. So they're coming up with the exact same plan. We have this park a block away from the convention site. The initial plan showed the entrance for the convention, two entrances, one north, one south, on the streets adjacent to this park. There won't be fences around this park. This will be just a gathering spot for mayhem.
Yeah.
Completely uncontrolled. So when I saw that, I know the RNC was concerned about that. They'd raised the issue. They weren't getting any traction. So I met with the director of the Secret Service last week. What's bizarre about that meeting is, again, they set the plan. They had the authority to create this plan, but now she says she doesn't have the authority to change it.
Who does have the authority?
I would think President
Yeah.
Biden, certainly President Biden would have the authority to tell his, Secretary of Mayorkas of DHS.
I'm sure that's going to go
tell
well.
Director
Yeah.
of the Secret Service, let's make sure we don't have problems in Milwaukee. We don't want problems in Chicago either.
Yeah.
The difference is in Chicago you have the United Center. It's completely surrounded by private parking lots, so you won't be able to get a protest zone close to that site. We got one a block away right now, and that's got to change.
Senator Ron Johnson, everybody. Senator, always appreciate you, sir. Thanks for being here with us.
Appreciate what you guys do.